That leads to guys not just being disappointed with Biden or the current Democratic Party or even Kamala Harris as part of the administration. It leads to them not believing you.
Right.
So when you come and you say, oh, this time I'm going to do minimum wage, and this time I'm going to do a bigger child tax credit, and this time I'm going to raise corporate taxes. That's what you said last time. And you didn't even try any of those things.
Ana Kasparian and Stephen A. Smith recently had some interesting comments about the black vote and how it has shifted away from Kamala Harris in comparison to 2020. So folks, if you enjoy the content, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you are new. And that said, take a listen to this.
There was an interesting conversation between Stephen A. Smith and Chris Wallace, and it had to do with the increased support that Trump is enjoying in this election cycle among young black voters. So while Kamala Harris has managed to increase her support among black voters overall, polling still suggests that Donald Trump has held on to his increased support among young black males. Now, according to the latest Morning Consult poll, which was published this week, they found that Harris has a 60-point lead among black voters, with 78% backing her and about 18% picking Trump. Now, obviously, Kamala Harris has a bigger lead among black voters. That's clear. But it's also clear that according to not just this poll, but several polls, Donald Trump has managed to increase his support among young black male voters. So just for comparison's sake, let's take a look at what happened in 2020. So black voters remained overwhelmingly loyal to the Democratic Party in 2020, voting 92% for Biden and 8% for Donald Trump.
Right, and this is the important point as it pertains to the black vote. You know, I think Republicans have to be realistic. This idea that we're somehow going to split the black vote 50-50 in 2024, absolutely not happening. And even as it pertains to this young black male demographic and how they are seemingly shifting towards Trump, are they actually going to turn out and vote for Donald Trump? Because no offense, this is simply the truth. You're talking about generally a lower propensity turnout demographic in the electorate. So that's not the point. The point here, though, is this. The black vote in 2020 went 92-8 for Biden, and we saw very high turnout rates. And this is the biggest thing. If black voters do not turn out for Kamala Harris in nearly as high of margins as they did in 2020, and secondly, if Trump picks off maybe a few points here and there, makes a little bit of inroads in the black community, that can be enough to make the electoral difference in a place like Detroit, Michigan, in Atlanta, Georgia, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in North Carolina, etc., etc. So that is the important point here. Now, in a second, Ana Kasparian and Cenk Uygyr, ironically enough, are going to make some interesting comments actually defending Donald Trump as a candidate, and we'll react to it. But first, a word from today's sponsors over at Ground News. Folks, you've heard me complain about how today's media fails to represent the views of the majority of Americans, especially conservatives. They tend to push liberal narratives while sidelining others, creating a massive disconnect with so many Americans. That's why I've partnered with Ground News to show you an easy way to get past all the bias and approach current events with a more balanced perspective. Ground News is an app that gathers news from both left and right-wing sources on the same topic, so that way you can form your own opinion based on every perspective. They even take it a step further with their blind spot feed that exposes the left's selective reporting. It surfaces important stories barely getting attention, like this one on how California lawmakers are passing a bill that could make undocumented immigrants eligible for home loans, which is absolutely insane. Ground News found just over 50 articles covering this, with only 9% of that reporting coming from left-wing sources, like the LA Times writing that this program would just benefit eligible first-time buyers, including immigrants, quote, in good standing. Nobody knows what that means, while right-leaning National Review points out that this program is severely lacking funding even for U.S. citizens and would exacerbate the state's ongoing housing crunch. With it being an election year, I really think news like this can change the outcome of elections and even the trajectory of this country, but only if you are aware of them in the first place, and I trust Ground News to help out with that. So stay fully informed informed on the news that can easily become sensationalized by the mainstream media, like the 2024 election, by visiting ground.news/VinceDao. Again, that is ground.news/VinceDao, or scan the QR code on my screen. My viewers save up to 40% on the same Vantage plan that I use for unlimited access to all of their features. All right, that said, let's get back into this.
What do you think is happening here? Why do you think Trump is doing relatively well with young black men? And Stephen A. Smith responds and says, I think that it's a combination of the disgust and the absence of trust that an abundance of people, not just black males, but an abundance of people in America have with Capitol Hill. All right, so I want to pause right there, because I think he really did hit the nail on the head. I think that Donald Trump is the middle finger manifested in human form. And I think that the individuals who support him, you know, they might support him for other reasons as well. But I do think that one of the dominant reasons is that it's giving a middle finger to our political establishment, to our institutions. And a lot of Americans feel like those institutions and the political establishment has let them down, whether we're talking about the Democratic establishment or the Republican establishment.
Yeah, I think Stephen A. Smith nailed it.
Yeah.
And I don't often say that. And he's way more conservative than I am, as far as I can tell, based on his public comments. But I think he's right about this one. And it's the Democrats playing with fire. They never deliver, they never deliver, they never deliver. And then they just keep asking for your votes. And at some point, it's going to catch up with you. In a sense, they're lucky because their opponent is so over the top. He's talking about how immigrants are eating cats and dogs. She's running against a literal lunatic and barely winning. She has a 1-point lead in Wisconsin. And if she loses that, she loses the whole election. Mm-hmm. I mean, that shows you how much the American people are sick of the Democratic Party and the establishment.
Well, interestingly enough, I think the characteristics of Trump that make Cenk Uygyr describe him as a lunatic actually are part of the reason he is doing well with some of the demographics being discussed here. But on top of that, again, the big point I think they're both missing here is not just whether or not black people will vote for Trump, but the greater picture of how high black turnout is going to be in this election cycle. And yes, Kamala Harris managed to stop some of the bleeding in regards to Joe Biden, but 2020 was a very unique year, right? You obviously had COVID, you had BLM. In many regards, public interest in politics was probably at its highest maybe ever during that election cycle. And a lot of that energy that may potentially translate to astronomically high black turnout for the Democrats is just not necessarily there. And like I said, if she dips off a couple points and a couple just raw thousands of votes in turnout in these large urban areas with black voters, she's pretty doomed actually in regards to the election. So something again to consider. It's not just about whether Trump himself is more popular now with black voters than he used to be. It's about the greater picture. How many black voters are just going to stay home and not vote for the Democrat candidate this time around like they did in 2020? And I think that statistic will tell you the much bigger picture, because the enthusiasm that was there in 2020 is just not there in the same way now. And yeah, maybe on top of that, just the simple fact that the cost of living is so high under this administration may tamper some of that enthusiasm even more.
So if you're a Democrat, like if that hurts your feelings, I hear you, brothers and sisters, but we as a party have to do better, right? Like if you can't just go, I blame the American people. No, they're experiencing it. Like, so, and I say this because look, I know tons of people who think, what do you mean? Biden gave us 10% positive change and I didn't need any change. And all of a sudden I got a gift of an extra 10% of positive change. That's amazing. He's like FDR. But when you need 100% change, 10% ain't going to do it.
Not only
it's a matter of perspective. For people who are wealthy, people who are doing well, they think, what more do you want, right? But for the average American, a lot more, because corporate rule has been taking and taking and taking from us. And that's not what the establishment doesn't realize or doesn't want to know.
No, exactly. How many of the alleged quote unquote accomplishments of this administration have actually been felt by the people? How many of the accomplishments have actually made your life better? The answer is very little to zero, and that is the difference between what the Democrats in DC are saying about their accomplishments and what everyday people are feeling. Cenk is absolutely right about this.
High inflation, high interest rates. Like, you can talk about specific legislation that Biden managed to pass, but you could also talk about the promises that Biden made but failed to keep. And when it comes to the day-to-day, in terms of what Americans are experiencing, it is the inflation, it is the high interest rates, which are now starting to come down. Federal Reserve lowered interest rates by 50 basis points yesterday. And so we're going to head in that direction because inflation has slowed. But a huge portion of Biden's term was dealing with this high inflation, and Americans are pissed about it. They're mad about it. And so
exactly. I signed the Inflation Reduction Act. Okay, but regular Americans walk around and they see the prices are still way too high. So there's a little bit of a gap here between what the Democrats are saying in DC and what people are feeling. Once again, like I said.
Oh, you could talk about the CHIPS Act. You could talk about the infrastructure bill. But again, what is the lived experience day to day of ordinary Americans?
Yeah, and here's another thing that's super important. The average American doesn't know and doesn't care about the parliamentarian or the filibuster. So when you said to them that you were going to do voting rights for African Americans, and then you barely even tried and it went nowhere, we didn't even have a debate over it, it was just gone, right? It looks like you weren't even trying. When you told everybody, hey, if you're an average guy here and you're just starting or you're struggling and you're getting minimum wage, we're going to get you $15 minimum wage. They actually believed you. Yeah. And then when Biden took that out first bill, first thing he did was take out minimum wage. He was lying all along. So if you do lie after lie after lie, you don't even deliver paid family leave, that polls at 84%.
Yeah.
I mean, how ridiculous are you?
Also, allowing the child tax credit to expire, that's a real financial benefit in people's lives that has been taken away.
Yeah.
Well, ironically now, Kamala Harris is, of course, talking about raising the child tax credit, but she has the power to do it right now. Joe Biden and her both. And what are they doing? And this is a large reason why many of the core parts of the Democrat constituency, i.e. the black community, I'm not saying they're going to vote for Trump in large numbers, but you have to consider if your people are disaffected with you enough to not show up to vote, that hands the election to Trump in many ways. Because the other side is enthusiastic. The other side is frankly angry about the current state of things. So they're going to get riled up. They're going to go crawl over broken glass to vote in high numbers. If you don't see that same turnout on the Democrat side, despite the very effective political machine they've built for the past several years, then, you may be in for a rude awakening there.
That leads to guys not just being disappointed with Biden or the current Democratic Party or even Kamala Harris as part of the administration. It leads to them not believing you.
Right.
So when you come and you say, oh, this time I'm going to do minimum wage, and this time I'm going to do a bigger child tax credit, and this time I'm going to raise corporate taxes. That's what you said last time. And you didn't even try any of those things. You did the child tax credit for 1 year. It was a spectacular success. It lowered child poverty by about 50%. It was one of the most stunning government programs ever. And then you took it away.
Yeah.
Oh, but the parliamentarian wouldn't let me pass it. Get the hell out of here. It has nothing to do with that. Your corporate donors wouldn't let you pass
Where there's a will, there's a way. But Stephen A. Smith also can.
So there you have it. And again, I think this is a reason why core Democrat constituencies may feel disaffected with their party in 2024, which, like I said, doesn't necessarily translate to them voting for Trump, but it does translate potentially to not showing up to vote at all, because they keep hearing these promises from the Kamala Harris campaign about how I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but she's the sitting vice president, and under her and his administration, they've been doing the opposite. Ultimately, we'll have to see, but I don't usually agree with TYT. I think, though, their analysis here is pretty spot on. So with that said, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to check out our friends at Ground News. Again, link there down in the description and in the pinned comment. And until next time, God bless and peace.